We have brought you here to the MPR early to give you a safety briefing, so please sit quietly for the next 10 minutes as we explain our safety procedures. It's called the Standard Response Protocol, and it's based on 4 actions that students and staff take during an incident. The actions are lock out, lock down, evacuate, and shelter. Each action has its own directive. Lock out, secure the perimeter. Lock down, locks, lights out of sight. Evacuate to a stated location, and shelter for a hazard-using method. Anytime these are called on the PA, then the action and directive are repeated. For instance, lock out, secure the perimeter. Lock out, secure the perimeter. Let's start with lock out. If there is a threat outside the building, then bring everyone in and lock the outside doors. Usually, lockout is called by the district or law enforcement emergency dispatch. Sometimes lockout is called when staff or students notice something weird or strange. Students are instructed to come back into the building. Students may be asked to go to their homeroom, the MPR, or sometimes even the gymnasium. Teachers, staff, and administrators will get students back into the building. Teachers will take roll and notify the office if missing or extra students are in their classroom. Increase the situational awareness, but do class as usual. When might a lockout occur? Remember, it's usually called by the district or law enforcement for activity happening outside the school. What is your role during a lockout? Listen for the teacher's instructions and provide your full cooperation. What happens if a lockout during class changes? Just go to the next period class. Can you leave the school during a lockout? No. Stay in the classroom and wait for further instructions. Lockdown. This means locks, lights out of sight. Lockdown. Locks, lights out of sight. Lockdown is when there is a threat or danger inside the building. Students, get out of sight. Please be quiet and pay attention. Teachers, lock classroom doors, lights out, move away from the corridor line of sight, maintain silence, take roll, and account for students. What's the difference between a lockout and a lockdown? Everyone inside for a lockout, and it's usually business as usual. But a lockdown, lock up, lights out, and out of sight. Evacuate. Well, evacuate is how to move students in an orderly fashion from point A to point B. A fire drill is really evacuate out of the building, with the SRP evac is always followed by a location. For instance, we would evacuate to the blacktop. Students, leave your stuff behind. Listen for the evacuation location, usually the blacktop. You may be given additional instructions on how to evacuate, so listen to your teachers. Students, there's no doubt that you need to and may have to ask to hold hands of a person in front or behind you. might be asked to cover your head, might be asked to crawl. That's why you need to listen to the instructions. Teachers, grab the roll if possible, and often you're in the lead. If evacuating hand in hand, watch your pace around corners and on the stairs. Here's an example. Evacuate hand in hand to the gymnasium. Evacuate and cover to the hallway. Evacuate away or self-evacuate. Here is our evacuation plan. They are found in every classroom, so study it. When departing to the blacktop, go to your first period number, which is marked on the blacktop, painted in white. This is an aerial view of our campus. And this might be a time for us to move on to an alternative site if we're asked by police or law enforcement. This is where we would go next to the tennis courts. If we're asked to move even further from the school, sometimes requested by law enforcement, we would move again to the south to Zephyr Circle, across the street south of Charlottewood Middle School, as shown in this diagram. Shelter. You may have heard shelter in place. The SRP gets specific and tells you the hazard and what to do. For instance, shelter for earthquake, drop, cover, hold. Shelter for earthquake, drop, cover, hold. Students, when you hear shelter, listen for the hazard like earthquake and use the method of self-protection. Teachers would also do the same. When possible, take roll and see if attendance has changed since the beginning of class. Notify the office if you are having missing or extra students or staff in your classroom. So, shelter for earthquake, which is drop, cover, hold. Shelter for a tornado, that would be drop, cover, and hold. For hazmat, which is usually a chemical spill or gas, teachers would need to seal the room. Shelter for a fire, which means drop and crawl. Shelter for a bomb, which means drop, cover, and hold. Or shelter in silence. Here are some methods for drop, cover, hold. If you're unfamiliar, please study this diagram. The standard response protocol is 4 simple actions. Lock out, secure the perimeter. Lock down, lights, locks, out of sight. Evacuate to a location like the blacktop. Shelter for hazard using method. Again, thank you. First evacuation drill is this Tuesday, September the 10th, first period. So be prepared. If you have any questions, talk to your teacher before the drill. Have a good day.